Hi, my name is Lucas White, and I'm going to talk about the industrialization problem of Yucaipa, California. Yucaipa is a small but growing city just at the base of Big Bear Mountain and is about 20 miles east of San Bernardino. Next slide. My emotional attachment to Yucaipa. I have an emotional attachment to Yucaipa because it's my hometown city and it is where I grew up my whole entire life. My parents moved to Yucaipa in 2001, way before I was born, with my three brothers. I had a lot of memories with my brothers growing up, and all of my fondest memories were in Yucaipa. My love for Yucaipa grew over the years and definitely grew a lot as I went to college, as I was experiencing homesickness for the first time. All in all, my emotional attachment to Yucaipa is that it's my hometown city. After all, I believe everyone always has a love for the city that they grew up in. Next slide. When I was a child, the amount of trees and wildlife that surrounded Yucaipa was absurd. Some of my fondest memories that I have in Yucaipa was running around in the regional park with my brothers, experiencing the oak trees and seeing the birds that fluttered around in the trees. As a child, Yucaipa was more of a farming town as there were tons of orange groves that stretched for miles and miles up and down the main street of Yucaipa, the Yucaipa Boulevard. I used to go visit the orange groves with my family. They used to host awesome festivals that would have music and orange streets. Years later, those orange groves were wiped out and filled with houses to overcome the rising population. The orange groves were also filled with shopping malls, parking lots, hospitals, and even more things. More people started moving to Yucaipa, so the city started making decisions to overcome this. Next slide. The problem Yucaipa faces. There are multiple problems that Yucaipa faces, but one of the main ones that I see is how much the environment has been tainted from the industrialization of the city. Because Yucaipa is a growing city, there are more buildings that are being put into place so that more people can live in the city. This affects the environment because they are not using effective land planning for these projects and are choosing areas to demolish that are beautiful environmentally. Because these projects are so big, the construction pollutes the air and water because they need places to dump materials. Their big machines, tractors, excavators, etc. pollute the air, causing a problem to wildlife and the environment. Next slide. Ways that I can help my city. The 3 ways that I can influence my city is to think about before partaking in industrial design are to engage in open dialogue, encourage responsible growth, and help develop sustainable policies. Engaging in open dialogue will put light into the situation for someone to live in Yucaipa to recognize. Bringing up to someone that we do have an industrialization problem will be the first step into fixing the problem. Addressing the fact that Yucaipa does have a problem is a big thing. Encouraging responsible growth would be the next step in fixing the issue. Encouraging the higher-ups in Yucaipa to make smarter decisions is very important. The 3rd way I can effect change in my community is to develop sustainable policies so that this won't happen again. Next slide. Engaging in open dialogue. The first step into fixing the community that I love is to engage in open dialogue around the community. This is the first step because I need to make it known that in fact Yucaipa does have a problem that needs to be fixed. If I can put this light into people's eyes, I will gather a following that would be powerful so that it would be easier to inspire change. We would have open discussions and would try to come up with different solutions by communicating with one another on how to tackle this issue. We would next have to set up platforms so we can broaden our movement. We could use platforms of all sorts like social media for an instance. Social media would be great because it would be easy for us to communicate, broaden, and enlarge our audience. The platforms that we could use could be Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat. Using social media as a source would be great because people that could support our movement could come through all ages. Social media is the best way for communication in today's age. The next part that we would need to achieve through engaging in open dialogue would be to have effective communication with the stakeholders in Yucaipa. Having conversations with the higher-ups in society because it would take the problem straight towards where it's coming from, the people making the decisions that affect the environment. Addressing this problem and letting these people know that this is affecting our community will hopefully inspire change in their hearts to slow down their industrialization process and preserve the environment. Next slide. Encouraging responsible growth. The second step into fixing the community that I love would be to encourage responsible growth. For this step, we would have to bring this topic up to the Yucaipa City Council, the people that make the decisions for Yucaipa. Making smarter construction decisions would be something that I would talk about. For instance, in Yucaipa, we have multiple grocery stores that are from the same company, Stater Brothers, for instance. We have 4 of these same grocery stores in our city when we only need around one of those stores or 2 for our small distance community. There are a bunch of these cases like this that are spread out through the community of Yucaipa. There is also the topic of where to build and when to build. Location is always a key factor in industrialization when it comes to preserving the environment around it. For instance, an example would be, don't build where you have to go through the environment to achieve the success of your project. The next thing I would begin to bring up is to replace those businesses with more sustainable businesses that promote a greener lifestyle, so there is not disposing of materials that would hurt around them, like polluting the air/water. Next slide. Developing sustainable policies. Developing sustainable policies would be the third step to taking care of the community that I love. The first thing I would do is to have an environmental impact assessment. Conduct a comprehensive assessment of the potential environmental impact of industrial activities in Yucaipa. This assessment should include evaluating air and water quality, waste generation and disposal, energy consumption, and the potential effects on natural habitats and biodiversity. This analysis provides a baseline for understanding the current state of the environment and identifying the areas that require mitigation or stricter regulations. The next step would be to establish environmental standards. Set clear and enforceable environmental standards and regulations for industries operating in Yucaipa. These standards should address emissions, waste management, resource conservation, and pollution control. By establishing strict guidelines, Yucaipa can ensure that industrial activities comply with environmentally responsible practices and minimize their ecological footprint. Encouraging sustainable practices. Promote and incentivize industries to adopt sustainable practices that go beyond compliance with regulations. This can include implementing energy-efficient technologies, utilizing renewable energy resources, adopting waste reduction and recycling measures, and implementing water conservation strategies. Incentives such as tax credits, grants, and recognition programs can encourage businesses to invest in sustainable practices. Next slide. Thank you for listening to my presentation.